So verses 295, 296, 297, 298, 299 and 300.
So basically 296 to 300.
Yeah.
As for example, backbiting, slander, bearing false witness or lying, and more importantly one's tongue should avoid saying anything just mentioned. He should guard his belly from what is haram and be assiduous in avoiding what is doubtful. He must protect his private parts and have fearful awareness of the one who witnesses him when he takes something or strives for something prohibited which he wants. He should desist from matters until he knows what Allah has ruled for them. He must purify his heart from showing off, from envy, conceit and every other sickness.
295?
295 to 300.
Okay, I did everything except 295. So let me go back to that. 295 is one lowers one's eyes before the haram and seal off one's hearing from any blameworthy matter.
Okay. Because how, Sidi Mayara does, he takes chunks now and deals with them. So, inshallah, we began with the Masail of Tawbah, then how to attain taqwa. Yeah? Now we come down to, the limbs themselves. Yeah? Now in English they're not limbs.
They relate to taqwa.
No, because taqwa is to abstain outwardly and inwardly, yeah, from what's it called? Ijtinab wa imtithal. That you abstain and you obey. Yeah, you abstain from haram. Yeah, and you obey what the commands are. Sidi Hamza radiallahu anhu, he used to define Tasawwuf. Someone asked him, and he would quote the ayah from Surah Hashr. وَمَا أَتَاكُمَ الرَّسُولُ فَأْخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَا عَنْكُمْ فَانْتَهُوا. Yeah? So this ijtinab and imtithal is what Allah and His Rasul are asking you to abstain, you abstain. And what they're commanding you to do, you do. Yeah?
What was the ayah, sorry?
It's from Surah Hashr. Whatever وَمَا أَتَاكُمَ الرَّسُولُ فَأْخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَا عَنْكُمْ فَانْتَهُوا. That whatever the Prophet ﷺ asks you to do, and whatever he asks you to abstain from, you abstain. And the ayah finishes with ittaqullah. Yeah? So this ijtinab wa imtithal zahiran wa batina. That it actually relates to the two verses that we covered earlier. So Sidi Mayara says that the deen is split into two, shatran. It either imtithal, that you obey the commands, or you abstain from the prohibitions. Now here we're let into a secret which is in plain sight, but it's still a secret. That abstaining from the prohibitions is more tough on the ego, on the nafs, than what we're commanded to do.
In my experience, people find praying harder than fasting Ramadan. Abstaining from food is easier than.
No, but fasting is still a command. Fasting is still a command. The prohibition from not backbiting is difficult. Controlling your tongue, controlling your genitals, controlling your hands. It's difficult. Now, what Sidi Mayara says that, you will find majority of people obeying the what we're commanded to do. Majority of people will pray, they will fast, they will give zakat. Okay? But he says that, to abstain from the prohibited, from haram, illa siddiqu, except, the highest degrees of people, the siddiqun. And we can actually see that. The next week coming, do an exercise. Whenever you're in company, see where the conversation will end up. Doesn't matter where, whatever company it is, at work, at family, in the mosque, in the zawiya. See where the conversation will end up.
Always.
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 Always. See, it's difficult. And I was, you've reminded me of something that happened to me in 1997 in Damascus. I was in the Sheikh's house, in his majlis. If anybody, started, he would say, that's not our majlis. That's not our majlis.
Meaning don't stay.
No. He would change it. He would change the conversation. So you see, we have the choice either to sit or to walk off, or to change the conversation. We have always those three choices. We can sit, walk away, or change the conversation. Now Sidi Mayara radiallahu anhu, he quotes a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Allah created for the fire 7 gates, and He created for the children of Adam 7 limbs. Whosoever obeys Allah by those limbs enters when you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by those limbs, because of those limbs, those 7 doors are shut. When you sin with those limbs, those 7 limbs obligate you entering the fire through those gates. Again, this is a bit of a brimstone and fire. So what are these limbs? So the 7 limbs are hearing, sight. As I said in English, they don't count as limbs, but in Arabic they're counted as jawarih. So hearing, sight, the tongue, the hands, the feet, the stomach, the genitals, now the root of correcting these limbs from corruption is the heart. for that's the Sultan. The limbs are its army. For no action is done until the heart commands it. And this is, referring to a hadith, well-known hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, that, in the body is a morsel of flesh. When it is whole, then the whole body is whole. And if it is corrupt, then the whole body is corrupt. And the Prophet ﷺ asked a rhetorical question: is it not the heart? Is it not the heart?
So, Sheikh, how many limbs?
Sabah.
Seven.
Yeah, 7. So, hearing, sight, tongue, hands, feet, stomach, and genitals. 7. So, what Sidi Mayara has done is he's divided the masail from, these matters from this poem into 4. So he says the first he'll talk about protecting the 7 limbs. Second, leaving matters which are doubtful, mutashabihat, in halal, without, knowing absolutely if they are or not. The third is stopping at matters that you do not know the hukum of Allah in. So you don't know what the hukum is. So you stop. You don't do that action until you know.
So the difference between the one before is shubuhat.
Yeah, those are shubuhat.
Grey area.
Grey areas, but then there are actions where you don't know the hukum.
At all, yeah.
At all. You don't know. So don't do them till you know. So he'll talk about that. The commentary is going to be divided into these. The fourth will be, purifying the heart from its illnesses, like pride, jealousy, vanity, and other than that. Yeah. Now, as to what Sidi Ibn Ashir said about lowering the gaze, it's and stopping and protecting in 2 places. He says it's leaving and protecting and stopping and purifying. That's how you do it. You stop, you leave, you protect, you stop, and you purify.
So that's the case. That's for all 7 limbs. At least sort of 4 grades of.
Yeah, those 4. He's literally وَيَتْرَكْ وَيَتَّقَى وَيَقُوف وَيَطْهَرْ. Yeah? You stop, you leave. يَتْرَكْ. Yeah? You protect. You lower your lid, lower your eyes, you leave. You protect your 7 limbs. Yeah? You stop where you don't know, and you purify your heart. As to, the protecting the limbs, it's a wajib. It's an obligation. There's no, problem with it being an obligation. Because, lowering the gaze is an obligation. Because it's not halal to look at. Yeah? Not halal to look at women, children, from the aspect of arousal. Yeah? Also, it's makruh to look at what is owned by other, by way of pleasure. An adage is that, when you go into a bookshop, never leave without, buying something. It's just, an ad. Because, if you're flicking through, that's someone else's property. Yeah? Because if you're flicking through, you've got no right to his property. Yeah? So because you've made use of it, buy something. Does it make sense?
Even if just to check.
Okay. Bookshop. It's like, forget about bookshop. You go into a grocery shop. Assalamu alaikum.
Can I come in?
Yes. Yeah. Now, when you go into a grocery shop, if you're going to buy, if you're not going to buy, what are you doing then?
Because it will make noise. Thank you.
It's not your shop. It's not your shop, is it? It's just, point of taqwa. It's being conscious of your actions.
No, they're in the corner.
Does it make sense?
Is it not good if we go to a bookshop?
Yeah.
And just flip through books and just read?
It's not in the corner.
No, I know. But the thing is, why are you reading? It's not your property. Do you understand?
Yeah.
It's like, because, Tasawwuf, we're dealing with masail of Tasawwuf. It's, the pinnacle of the deen. Yeah? It's, it's high. So your thoughts, you've got to think of what you're doing. Yeah? So your actions, what are you doing? This window shopping is okay. Yeah? Because they've put it on display. You've not gone into the shop. You go into the shop is a different story. Does it make sense or no? No? Yes?
With the intention of buying?
No, with the intention of buying. Look, someone like me, I know what I want. So I'll go in. If I don't find it, fair enough, I haven't found it. I usually say, sorry, I didn't find it. I hate going shopping. Yeah? But certain people do like shopping. This thing of, something that Imam Shafi'i radhiyallahu anhu transmits from the Sufis. He transmits three things, but the relevant point is, he says that the Sufis say, time is a sword. You cut it or it will cut you. Yeah? Time is a sword. You cut it or you'll cut you. So what are you doing? Wasting time. You're flicking through books. They're not your books. Are you going to pay for it? Yeah? So as I said, the adage is, if you go into a shop, buy something. Even if you don't need it. Otherwise, don't go in. Yeah? This is one of them. Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. The other thing is, this is something that, where the time and age we live in, this does not make sense at all. This thing. But it's something that has always made sense. For, Muslims of that conscience. Is that conscious? What's the word?
Consciousness? No.
No.
Do you mean conscience? They're
conscious.
Sense of right and wrong?
Yes.
Yeah, conscious.
Yeah? Because we've always had this. Because it's not your property. It's someone else's. You're making use of it. Are you paying for it? We don't think of that.
But if they're displaying it,
I know, they're displaying it. That's their job. Because, it's a crass analogy I'm going to give you. And to the ladies, please forgive me. A prostitute donning herself up and standing there, that's her job. You don't need to do anything, do you? You lower your gaze and walk on. Yeah? It's not your job, not your affair. If you don't need to buy it, you don't need to be there. It's a sword. You cut it or it'll cut you. Yeah? The other is amusement and places of amusement. Yes, there is khilaf on this, but we're talking about Sufis now. Yes.
So it's the same. It's now the business, they are studied and they are done in a psychological way that they allowed you, they call you and they put all the clothes there.
Yeah.
That for them, you don't come as having an idea to buy something.
Yeah.
You come to try. So you're allowed to try.
Yes. It's wrong.
So even if we go and we look into a book,
I know. I understand that. As I said, it doesn't. I do apologize. It's not. I understand what you're saying.
Because if they are done,
yeah, I totally understand.
To call us to try.
Yeah,
to open
I totally understand. I would recommend to you to, if you can read any of his works, please read them. Otherwise, listen to him or watch him. Yeah, I'm someone that Noam Chomsky. That guy told us about where we are now. Yeah, I won't use the word that I want to use. It begins with an S. Yeah, where we are now. Then. Yeah, because where we are now, we don't need to be here. Yeah. And we either buy into it or we don't buy into it. It's our choice. Yeah? Just because the shop is there, we don't need to go into it. If we don't need clothes, why do we need to?
But I think now it's designed on canvas. You don't need nothing, but we're calling you.
I know.
We authorize you, we give you the right to
I know.
try our
I totally understand.
So we're not really doing.
I totally understand. Yeah? Tasawwuf says, forget it. Because you don't need to. You're wasting time.
But the thing is, when the shop allows you, if you do it, you're not doing it.
I know, we do it. We do it. But, we have a choice of doing it and not doing it. We need to know what we're doing. The whole thing of Tasawwuf is exactly what you're doing in every given situation. If I wanted to sum up, the whole thing, philosophy of Tasawwuf is exactly what you're doing every moment of your life. Why? Because you are going to answer for every moment of your life.
So, Sidi, does that come under the hadith where the Rasul said, part of being a believer is to mind your own business?
That's to do with other, this would come into it, but that is a way of understanding.
Sure. Just one question. Does that relate to Saddu Dara'i in terms of leading you to?
Saddu Dara'i is, to stop you from haram. Yeah. On Malahi, on what we're talking about, there's khilaf. Yeah, there's scholarly khilaf. What I'm talking about, scholars will say, what the hell are you talking about? We don't have one opinion on it. Yes, we do understand that. But we're talking about something, more than halal and haram. We're talking about you understanding exactly what you're doing. Yeah? It's not just an issue now, a matter now of halal and haram. Does that make sense? Yeah? Also, looking at what is haram. There goes the TV. There goes the internet. There goes the mobile phone. But again, is knowing exactly what you're doing. The knife in the hand of a murderer is a lethal weapon. Yeah? But in the hand of a chef, it's a beautiful thing. He produces amazing stuff. Yeah? It's what you do with it. It's what you do with it. Yeah? If you're going into the shop because you want something specific, you got a reason. Yeah? Okay. Also, looking and finding fault at, people. You don't find fault. Don't look for faults. Our Shaykh Radhiallahu Anhu, Sidi Hamza Radhiallahu Anhu, he used to say that, when God wants good for you, yeah? When God wants good for you, He hides the faults of creation from you. It's something from God. It's something we can't, we can aim for it. If God gives it, alhamdulillah. Yeah? The adage about, we've all heard of the story of Layla and Majnun. Yeah? And someone said to Majnun that, your Layla's ugly. Yeah? Someone said to Majnun, your Layla's ugly. He said, you haven't got my eyes to look at her. Yeah? It's also to look down on Muslims. Yeah? You despise them.
Just Muslims.
Here, I'm just going by the text. Yeah? But in reality, again, it's your heart. How you see it. What we were talking about before. Al-Khalqu Ayalullah. Yeah? But what you'll find is that, people will differentiate between Muslim and non-Muslim. Yeah? What you do is you begin from within the house and then you go out. Yeah? You can't, keep finding fault with your family and not find fault with the others. Yes. Begin by not finding fault with your family first and then go out. You've got to start from somewhere. Now, Sidi Mayara says, you can see that all of these are matters of the heart. they're not matters of the eye. If the heart is sick, it'll reflect. It's not, the eye, it's just light that hits it. Yeah? And the heart and the mind, it can choose to ignore certain things. Do you know this? Seriously, when you start reading how, the eye and the mind works, is the mind can just, get the eye to heart, to ignore certain things. Yeah. So now Sidi Mayara says it's an obligation to stop hearing, sin. Stop hearing sin with the ears. Backbiting.
So it's hearing sin, not hearing about sin related.
It's the same thing. Hearing sin, hearing about sin, it's just stop someone. It's like, what I was reminded, someone started and the Shaykh said, not in my majlis. Not in my majlis. It's like, Sayyid ibn Musayyib, one of the tabi'een. He came to the mosque and someone was in the courtyard of the mosque selling something. And he went to him and said, Hada suquna. This is our market. Get lost. Go to your own market. Yeah? It's like, each sphere has its own rules. And in the sphere of Tasawwuf, you're aiming for the sublime. You might not hit it, but you aim. Yeah? So there is, something that I can reach. So I start aiming for it. Inshallah, Allah give us tawfiq to reach it. Yeah? So also, falsehood. Lying. Again, entertainment. Again, as I said before, there is khilaf on this. Yeah? And unseemly language, which is, something that you find within, certain circles. Because, certain people have grown up in certain areas of school a certain way. They start using certain language. Unacceptable. Yeah? It's like, my own, Pakistani background. You find that our youth who've been born and bred here, rather than, emulating the best, they emulate the worst of society. And this is what, Kalam al-Ajnabiyya is that, you start using base language. And what you'll find is that, the people who practice Tasawwuf, you will find that, their language is so fine. And their, conduct and etiquette is so fine. Because, there's this really old faqir of our Shaykh. He's from Agadir, down south. He's black, Sahrawi. And he never looks at anyone. His adab is so, I could never do it. He always keeps his eyes down. Never, fully looks. So that was, with the ears. With the tongue, it's an obligation that you're not permitted that you use it to lie, to use it for false testimony, for base language, backbiting, half-truths. Some people will say, I'm not lying. So they're not telling the full truth either. Sidi Mayara says all of this is falsehood. None of this is acceptable. So just as it's an obligation upon us, to control what we hear, and control what we say. It's an obligation that we protect our stomach from haram, from food. Sidi Hamza would say that, haram, even if it walks into your house, it's not for you. It's not for you. So if, it's usurped, it's been stolen, that's why it's so important to check what we eat. From, protecting the stomach, it's necessary that we only eat halal. Just as we protect it from haram, we have to eat only what is halal. And here it becomes really, really difficult. Really, really difficult. Wherever you look, you will find that, but you do your best. Okay? Sidi Mayara says on this subject that, there are so many ayat, hadith and athar transmitted. He says, look into it, if there is a khilaf on it being halal or not. Because you'll find that, he says, a lot of humans will practice haram. And he says that, the principle of what is halal and the principle of what is haram, he says what enters in haram, and it's an obligation to protect the stomach from, is that you don't eat carrion. You don't eat, what has been, hit on the head. You don't eat blood. Yeah? You don't eat pork or what has been, killed in other than the name of God, or being strangled. Yes.
What would you say about stunning first and slaughtering the cattle?
My own understanding of it is not halal.
It's not.
It's not. That's my own take on that. I know there are opinions within the Hanafi school where they permit it, but from what I know of and what I've read and what I've spoken to from people who know the school No. Because the thing is that, it's, you can't, you don't know if the animal has died or not when you stun it. You're electrocuting it. No. Because the whole reason for dab is to make sure that all the blood leaves. When you stun it, you subdue its brain. Yes?
There is not even the reason that it's more gentle for the animal or suffering.
The suffering is the same.
No, but to slow them to...
Yeah. No, but they electrocute it, stun it, and then they slaughter.
But electrocution, is it more suffering than just slaughter?
Yes.
Because one
Yeah.
of the thing to do it is
Yeah.
suffering.
It's something that, is very easy now in this country anyway. I don't know in London, but in Birmingham, the shops still clearly state that it's non-stun.
HMC, right?
Yeah.
It's the work,
Yeah. So it's better not to. When there's doubt, the Prophet ﷺ again gave us a qaida kulliya. Da' ma yuribuka ila ma la yuribuk. That, leave in which there is doubt and go to where there is no doubt. With stunning there is doubt. With non-stunning there is no doubt. It's so clear. Yeah? So the whole thing of when you're eating meat, try to wholesome meat, because this thing of halal. This is not our subject today, but halal is not halal. But what you do is do your best. A little is better than a lot, and fish is lot halaler than halal meat. Yeah? Okay. We move on to, alcohol, khamr, and other than, intoxicants. So, a little or a lot is the same. Yeah? We don't have this, because within the Hanafi madhab there is this opinion that a little, no, a little or a lot. Yeah?
Does that include perfume?
What you mean, alcohol?
Yeah.
With alcohol we mean brewed alcohol that is brewed for consumption. Yeah? When you're talking about alcohol that is used, a chemical for cleaning or preservation, that's a chemical.
Or even medicine.
Even medicine is a chemical. It's not brewed. Yeah. The same with what's hashish in English?
Weed.
Marijuana.
Okay, weed.
Are there different opinions on that?
What you'll find is that it's something that you'll find that with hashish and afim, it's something that mufsid. It's something that what about mufsid?
Western.
Yeah, it's not considered an intoxicant that, because with alcohol it affects your intellect. Yeah. Well, weed and opium, a little amount of opium historically has always been used as painkillers, and the scholars have never had problems with that, as long as it's used for medicinal purposes. And by medicinal purposes, I don't mean that you self-prescribe. Yeah. So, if it is medicinal purposes, because even now, in this country, a lot of the painkillers are opiates. They're opium based, and they're halal. They're not haram. So, as long as it does not overwhelm your essential faculties and your intellectual faculties, it's fine.
So is alcohol najis?
Alcohol is najis.
But opium, for instance, wouldn't be.
It's mufsid, it's not najis.
And what we decide mufsid meant?
Mufsid,
corrupting.
Yeah, it corrupts.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a question of degree rather than...
It's a question of degree, because you see, Allah called khamr najis in the scripture, in the Quran. And these are juristic opinions, because we don't have there's no textual basis for us to declare them haram. So we will have juristic opinion. So juristic opinion, is a juristic opinion.
Something like you can get alcohol-free wine, which was alcoholic, but it's had the alcohol removed.
It's not wine.
It's grapefruit, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not wine.
Even though it had najasa in it.
No, but the thing is that the khamr is gone.
Okay, right.
What was it? Vinegar.
Okay.
So the asal has changed. Now, with me, I have a problem. I'm just talking to you personally. I have a problem with that. And the reason why is Imam Malik radhiyallahu anhu. Because the hadith that everything from the sea is halal, even it's dead. But then someone asked him about, khanzir al-bahr, the swine of the sea. And he said, you call it khanzir. He said, you call it swine. So you see, when you say alcohol-free beer or alcohol-free wine, it's still wine, it's still beer. Do you understand?
Change the name.
Yeah, it's still beer, it's still wine. Because you see, it's what it's associated with.
Yeah, the
association.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's associated with haram. So, someone needs to talk to those people.
What is alcohol-free wine?
Huh?
What is alcohol-free wine?
Juice.
Just grape juice?
Well,
No, it has the same taste.
Yeah.
Just no alcohol.
So they ferment it, the alcohol is there, and then chemically they remove the alcohol. I don't know how.
So it's the same taste, but with
Because well, you probably don't, but grape juice doesn't taste the same as wine because there's the fermentation. So alcohol-free wine tastes like wine, and
no alcohol. Okay.
Yeah. Now, what Sidi Mayara is saying about opium is that the amount that's used is not haram because it does not affect the intellect. Yeah. So he says it's permitted to make use of a little of it as long as it does not affect the intellect for medicinal purposes. And he says the opinions of the scholars, there's a difference of opinion on this. we move on to something we call tobacco. Now, I actually jotted down somewhere a whole notes of mine, because we've only had it for 400 years, yeah, and we actually know the route that it came in through Egypt, through European, and from the year it came till now, the opinion of the scholars of the school has been exactly the same. Haram. And they authored works upon works on this.
So it's even stronger than the weed opinion.
The weed thing is because you see it can be used. There's a reason.
There is some value to it. Medicinal. Okay.
With the tobacco,
nothing.
There is no value. Okay. There is actually ruin.
Okay. Even worse now with the chemicals they put.
Yeah.
They literally put a chemical poison inside.
Yeah. Because what you find is, I'll leave Sidi Meir, I'll share with you my own research on this. That the Prophet ﷺ shared with us that the example of good company and bad company. What was the example of the bad company? Blacksmiths.
Okay.
Yeah. The blacksmiths. What does the blacksmith smell of?
Coke.
Smoke. Smoke. That's the Prophet telling you the example of bad company. Yeah, you'll smell of smoke. Yeah, that's one. What's the last group of Muslims that will be taken out of hell? What will they be called? Yeah, they'll smell of it. They'll smell of smoke. They'll actually be called Ashabu Dakhakhin. So it's a waste of money. It's a way. It keeps away the angels. And you know what modern science tells us, how it ruins health and wealth. So it's waste of money, waste of time. So
it's even written on the packages themselves. When people
obviously it's so telling the packages that this is haram, do not smoke me.
Yeah.
So Sheikh, all the our shuyukh and ulama, then they established the health consequences, effects.
Yes. If you go to Allama Alish, 1800s, his fatwa are in print. He actually has recorded Allama Laqani's whole epistle on it being haram. Allama Alish and scholars before him. And then all the ulama in the Khalij, the Malikiyah, it's not permitted. Yes, again, this is. Let me clarify it. It's scholarly opinion. It's not. We don't have any nas. Yeah. So what the scholars are doing is they're looking at the other principles, because we're not allowed to waste money. It's haram for Muslims to waste money. That's why if you have money, you're not allowed to keep it in the bank, because your money is going down in value. You have to invest it. You have to make it grow.
Is that you mean today's currency, not dinar dirham?
It doesn't matter. Your wealth is your wealth. You have to. I'm talking about thousands. I'm not talking about hundreds. Yeah.
Surplus, if you have surplus.
If you have surplus, you shouldn't let it sit there. You should use it so it grows.
And
Yes.
Put it on the side for a project. Is that even the same thing? Or
No. If you are saving to do something, that's okay. Yeah. So Sidi Mayara says that it keeps away the angels, and there's no benefit to the batin for it, and it's haram. You have to keep away from it. It's also moving back to the halal. You've got to. It's an obligation to wear halal. Yeah, what you wear has to be halal.
Satr al-awra.
No, not just satr al-awra. Satr al-awra is you can't go out naked. That's satr al-awra. Yeah, you shouldn't go out naked. It's what you're wearing. Yeah, you're not wearing stolen stuff. You're not wearing, stuff that clothes that you've forced someone to make and not paid for. They're halal. You've earned them halal. You've bought them halal. Yes.
So like, say if you're wearing a leather jacket and you were not sure if it was the leather was slaughtered in halal, does that also come under that?
The technicality is that the Imam Shafi's opinion, we take it when what'll happen is to get out of khilaf. Yeah, ideally, buy the leather from a Muslim country. The problem is gone. Yeah. But then if you don't, Imam Shafi's opinion is if it's slaughtered and tanned, it's clean. So that will help us. Yes.
Does that apply to leather and swine as well?
Again, Imam Shafi's opinion will, but ours we try not to. But again, the opinion is there. You can, if it is tanned, the Shafi opinion is it's clean.
Big bristled brushes?
Again, the same. Because the thing is that the bristle, the people in Medina used to use them as needles. But that's boar rather than yeah. But as long as it's alive and it's picked, it's clean. If it's dead, because the hukam is that it becomes najis. But then with Imam Shafi's opinion, if it is tanned, it becomes clean. But that's Imam Shafi's opinion. But to save yourself, you can. So the clothes you wear should be halal. The where you live should be halal. The building where you're living, that should be halal.
I don't want to launch a big discussion.
Yeah.
Mortgages, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a simple one.
Good.
Yes, halal or
yes. Because what you've got to understand is that there is fatwa out there that the European Council has given fatwa. There are scholars from Hanafi madhab and others that say the first mortgage is halal. But then when you go and look at the nitty gritty, as you said, no big discussion. But I will ask you all to look at the case in Malaysia. They've changed the name. They don't call it a mortgage. They call it a hire purchase agreement.
Does it
Yeah.
make it halal to change the name?
Pardon?
Does it make it halal to change the name?
No, because you see, what it is, that you know what the conversation we had earlier, that you know it's called alcohol-free beer, alcohol-free wine. The haram element has been removed, but it still carries the name,
So it's associated.
is associated. Now, the thing is that, you know, when it comes to, I'll give you a principle which will help you to research further and will give you some peace of mind as well. Yeah? Riba is on money. You know, usury, it's when you borrow money. Yeah? When you buy something, there's no riba involved. Now, you know, the question I have for you now is, what does the bank give you? Does it give you the house or does it give you the money? As I said, go and research. And no, it never gives you the money. Never gives you the money.
You don't have money.
It never gives you the money, right? But also look into Malaysia hire and purchase
They
agreements.
give you numbers on the screen. They don't actually give you money.
Sheikh, are you talking about conventional mortgage or the so-called Islamic mortgage? In terms of the bank giving the money?
You know, if I called a pig, I mean pork, halal, will it make it halal?
But what is it called? Called hasana. So
That's a different thing.
But
it's
No, you know,
translation.
pork, whatever you call it, the hukum will be the same. Yeah? Just because you call them, you know, halal mortgages, doesn't make them halal. You've got to look at, you know, the principle behind it, the contract itself. Yeah?
So the Islamic mortgage.
Forget about, you know, this Islamic, it doesn't, a mortgage is a mortgage. Yeah? It's a contract. Yeah? The contract is, you've got to look at the contract. It's the contract that makes it halal or haram. That's all it is.
So if it's backed up by the actual property,
It's got nothing to do with any property. It's the contract. You know, the devil is in the detail. As I said, it's not not a discussion that will be here for hours. But the thing is that, you know, as I said, the principle is that usury is on money. It's not on, you know, property. Not when you buy. Yeah. So, if you look into that, you'll find, you know, that what I'm saying will make sense. And if you do need to buy a mortgage, buy a house and rent, if you've got enough for deposit, buy a house. And if you're afraid of, I'll sign a piece of paper and I'll answer for you on that day, but you'll have to find me. But the thing is that, you know, really look into what's happening in Malaysia and the Far East with hire and purchase agreements, and then look at, you know, the so-called Islamic mortgages, what they're doing. Inshallah. Okay. So it's what we'll do is, you know, we'll break at 3 for Asr. We'll pray Asr and then come back. Inshallah. Yeah? It's an obligation to protect your genitals from, you know, adultery, fornication, and protect your hands from, you know, striking at something that is prohibited. Touching something that is prohibited. And a man should protect. A man should protect, what is his, and he should not, want what is prohibited. Yeah? That's what it means that you protect your genitals. I teach, on Sunday a text called the Ma'una every Sunday in Birmingham, and we're on the first volume. It's the third, fourth year now. We're still on the first volume, and it's God gives us the license to, this whole debate about slavery. I don't want to get into, but in Surah, I think it's Surah Nisa, you'll find that God permits a Muslim to marry a Muslim slave, a free Muslim to marry a Muslim slave, because he can't afford the dowry of a free woman, or he's afraid of committing haram.
Is the word nikah used in the ayah?
Of course, yeah. This whole thing of Malakat al-Yameen they need to look at it in light of that ayah. It's not carte blanche, because Allah says that when they are afraid, it's conditional. With the Malikis, it's two conditions. With the Hanafis, there's only one condition. The Hanafis is the dowry, yeah. But with the Malikis is that if they fear committing haram, yeah, that they can marry a slave. So here, that the man protects. He only doesn't go to what is prohibited, and he doesn't desire what is prohibited either. And he's, always aware of the one who's present in these scenarios. Yeah? Because you'll find that, a lot of, the sexual abuse and everything else that's going on, in our society in the UK. I know we're not dealing with Muslims, but again, in the Muslim scenario, they've got to be aware that God is there. God is there. So, they don't go, we can't stop people thinking, yeah, but we can stop people, going towards haram, but and with their hand and feet. With the mind, we can't. So they abstain with their hand. Don't go to something that is not halal for them, from wealth, from body, or blood. Yeah. Now, also with their feet, with what's not halal for them, and they're not there's no bodily contact, or genital, meaning genitalia contact, with other bodies, which is not halal. And this is what's meant by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. Sorry. This is from ayah 5 to 7 of Surah Mu'minun. فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ. Now, is there any, what we've covered so far not clear? Because up to here we've covered, the limbs. We come to the end about, yes.
Sorry, I just did a note of something. When I read it back, I didn't understood.
Okay.
It's just the honor of a believer is greater than the house of God.
Yes.
I forgot what did you wanted to mean.
Okay. In all scenarios, the honor of a believer, you don't do anything dishonorable, and don't let anyone else do anything to malign your character or your honor. But the context that I mentioned was, when you're trying to put things right. When you do tawbah, and one of the conditions of tawbah is that you try to put things right. So don't put yourself in a situation where, you are lowered in other people's eyes. Are we okay so far? Okay. We've got 10 minutes. So we move on to, doubtful matters. So this is something that, is something that is desired, something that is sought, that you leave. Tark. Yeah? You leave doubtful matters. And you leave them by intent. You aim to leave them by intent, by need. Because there's always, keep in mind that, when you leave something by intent, when you make the intention, I'm leaving this, yeah, because it's doubtful, it's haram, or I'm doing this because this is halal for me, you will get rewarded for it. Yeah? There's thawab. Rather than just leaving it. And it's the same when you make the intention that you're leaving something that's haram, or you're doing this as an act of obedience to God. There's a reward for it. Okay. He doesn't go, Sidi Mera doesn't go into what the doubtful matters are, because the list would be endless. Yeah. So he says something that is not clear, it is halal, or there is doubt in it being haram, because the evidences clash with each other. Yes.
What's your opinion on music?
My opinion on music. I listen to music. I usually, when I'm driving, I listen to classical music. I have Radio 3 on. But, when you mean music, do you listen to Qur'an?
Qur'an?
Yeah. Yes. So, is that music?
It doesn't involve instruments.
Okay, but there's music. The qira'at are based on the maqamat. The maqamat are not Arab, by the way. Do you know this?
And they're Persian.
They're Persian. And all the qira'at that are, the maqamat that are recited, there's no asl for them. They're all Persian, and it's all music. And we never. I love listening to the Sudanese Sheikh Zain. Sheikh Zain, subhanallah, God's given him something. It's proper, what's it called? African melody. And then, from Morocco, there's a very old Sheikh Hajj bin Musa, who passed away in 98. He recites, and then when you listen to the Quran now in Morocco, it's the same as Saudi, but the music is in the qira'at.
Even in the adhan as well.
No, the adhan is pure music. Sheikh a student of Sidi Abdul Aziz bin Sheikh Abdullah bin Siddiq al-Ghumari from Malia, in Morocco, the Spanish enclave. I've forgotten his name now. He was asked about the adhan. There's a recording of him. If you want to, you can listen to it. They asked him, Sidi, what do you think of the adhan? He says, flamenco. He said flamenco. Now, with music, there's, the Prophet ﷺ listened to the girls singing in his house. They were praying the duf. When the Habashis, the people from Abyssinia, the Habashis, they danced and sang in the masjid. The Prophet listened, his wife listened, and the Prophet listened, and he watched them. And if it was haram, he wouldn't let them. And when the girls were singing and playing the duf, it's in Bukhari, Sayyidina Rasulullah was lying down with, cloth over his head. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr walked in, and Sayyidina Abu Bakr said, Amazamiru shaitan fi bayti Rasulullah. He said, Mazamiru shaitan fi bayti Rasulullah. He said, what? The instruments of Satan in the house of the Prophet? And the Prophet took he says, Abu Bakr, it's Eid, let him be. Yeah? The thing is that, Qadi Abu Bakr ibn Arabi, the Maliki faqih, in his Ahkam al-Quran, he said there is nothing sahih, no authentic narration. There's no ayah about there's no ayah. There's no hadith which categorically says it's haram. the fuqaha within the madhab, the mashhur of the madhab is that, weddings, at occasions where people gather, weddings, khatna, when someone is welcomed, where there's a reason, celebration, it's fine. Yeah, certain instruments, but then said people like Qadi Abu Bakr don't agree with that. But the well known is that it's makruh, and there's no one says that mutlaqan is haram. Yeah, certain instruments, yes. But I hold the opinion of Qadi Abu Bakr ibn Arabi that there is no categorical evidence to make it haram, because every evidence you bring forward, there's khilaf.
What's the other instruments?
The flute, and the Prophet told his cousin that the shepherd was playing it, and the Prophet said, "Tell me when he stops." So the commentators, they say that if it was haram, why would the Prophet tell his cousin? It's haram. If it's haram for everyone. There's khilaf, and there's difference of opinion within the ummah on music, and that's the best position to be, rather than saying you're right and you're wrong. Is you choose whichever one you like, because if you're going to go into music, then you've got to explain about the music of the qira'ah.
Sheikh Ramadan Abul rahimahullah, he said, if you hear the adhan that they have been made popular from Saudi,
yes, music.
It's not sunnah to respond to it.
Because it's music.
Yeah, because it's music.
Yeah. And this Sheikh, I can't remember his name. He used to call it flamenco.
This one is very different. We had the adhan when we go Hajj, very Maliki, but when we are in Morocco or Africa, it's very.
No, but the adhan in Fez and the adhan in Sus is different. The adhan in Sus is the right one. The one in Fez is music.
Sus in Tunisia. Tunisia.
No.
South.
Okay.
I was thinking Tunisia.
No.
I didn't know this was.
No, it's Morocco, south.
Agadir.
Yeah, proper. No music. It's just Allahu Akbar. Yeah, that's the azan. They just fill their chest.
They put on Allah's name. It's not even his name anymore.
Alhamdulillah, في كل حال. عصر. It's 3.